We really are delighted to have you all here. And without further ado, let me hand over for the opening statement by UNECE's Executive Secretary, Ms. Tatiana Molchan. Thank you. Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm not sure if it's good morning or good afternoon or very early morning to everyone. Excellencies, colleagues, as Liliana just mentioned, this is the first ever Trees and Cities Challenge Summit. And it's truly a pleasure to bring together such an inspiring community of city leaders, practitioners, and partners. You are the people turning a powerful vision into real change, creating greener, healthier cities and driving global effort to bring trees back into urban life. And this leadership cannot be more timely. Cities are getting hotter, more crowded, and more vulnerable. Extreme heat, air pollution, but also climate impacts, which are already, as we have been talking many times, not a distant risk, they are daily realities. And in this context, urban trees and green spaces are not a luxury. They are some of our most effective tools for resilience. They cool our streets, clean the air we breathe, support biodiversity, and improve physical and mental health as well. Simply put, they are essential urban infrastructure. That's why your work matters and why the Trees and City Challenge matters. And since its launch back in 2019, the challenge has become a platform where cities can move from ambition to action. Across our region, across UNECE region and beyond, cities are taking meaningful steps to expand urban forest cover. And at UNECE, we are very proud to support this momentum through concrete tools and guidance, including the Trees for Resilient Green Cities Toolkit and our quick guide, which help strengthen planning and governance for urban and food forests. And today we'll also hear about our new quick guides on urban forestry in national policy and a Rio Convention delivery mechanism. One thing that I want to emphasize is that local action is powerful as such, but it becomes truly transformative when cities are connected. Many of you face similar challenges, whether it's limited space in dense urban cores or water scarcity in dry climates. UNECE initiatives are designed to help cities work through these barriers together. The UN Petite Forest Network shows how even small spaces can host thriving forests and strong community engagement. The Trees and Dry Cities Coalition supports cities in arid regions with technical guidance, policy support, and cooperation. And if your city is not yet part of the Trees and Cities Challenge, I warmly invite you to join this growing movement and connect with all UNECE Urban Nature Action initiatives. Of course, while cities lead the way, the impact is greatest when supported by strong national frameworks. The San Marino Regional Urban Forestry Action Plan, adopted in 2023, provides exactly that, guiding the planning, protection, and management of urban forests. Today's summit is a chance to build on this foundation, to deepen cooperation, share what works, and better link local innovation with regional and national outcomes. And I'd like really to take a moment to also thank those who make this collective effort possible. My sincere thanks to San Marino Secretary of State, Mr. Matteo Ciacci, for being with us today and for San Marino's strong and continued commitment to urban forestry. We are honored that San Marino hosted 2 UNECE tiny forests and lends its name to our regional action plan. I also extend my appreciation to Mr. Keith Anderson and the Swiss Federal Office for the Environment for their steadfast support. And thank you to all the city leaders and distinguished speakers who are contributing today and throughout the year. As we look ahead, the direction is clear. Every tree planted, every park restored, and every partnership formed brings us closer to resilient, inclusive, and vibrant cities. And I'm truly inspired by the commitment in this room, virtual as it is. At the 2025 Forum of Mayors, 40 new cities joined the Trees and Cities Challenge, an extraordinary milestone. Thank you all of you, both new and long-standing partners for your leadership and dedication. So I look forward from new ideas, insights that will emerge from this Cities Challenge, Trees in Cities Challenge Summit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Executive Secretary. We're really delighted that you opened this meeting, and I personally know that you're a very strong and steadfast supporter of the Trees in Cities Challenge and all the good work that is done. It is indeed a pleasure to have already now 114 participants here. This is a success we didn't even dream of, so thank you very much to everyone who is here. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to, as you said, if I may say so, the patron saint of this program, San Marino, Mr. Ambassador Bakary, who is the permanent representative of the Republic of San Marino to the United Nations office at Geneva. The floor is yours, and we are delighted to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear Executive Secretary, dear delegates, good morning. Thank you for organizing this meeting. We are honored that one of the UNECE documents on forestry policies bears the name of San Marino, and we think that presenting the progress made by the countries of UNECE region on the San Marino Action Plan on a regular basis is very important. For this reason, for example, among the various activities of the UNECE, we find the organization of informal meetings of the Task Force on San Marino Regional Urban Forestry Action Plan particularly useful. Those who had the opportunity to attend the CAFE committee in 2023 in San Marino were able to realize the reality of our country, a small republic, but surrounded by green areas that demonstrate our sensitivity to the forestry issue. We planted 2 tiny forests dedicated to the UNECE. These forests are growing and are often visited by schools in San Marino. Our country has small forested areas, mainly consisting of chestnut and oak trees. In fact, we place a lot of importance on planting local species, and it was preciously local species that were planted in the 2 UNECE forests. Sustainable management of natural resources is a priority for San Marino, with a focus on conservation and environmental protection. San Marino is also committed to preserving its natural heritage while promoting sustainable tourism. Concretely, in San Marino, over the past few years, we have been working on the new land use plan. The architects who worked on this project now having important tools such as San Marino Action Plan at their disposal. Latest news. In July, San Marino implemented the EU regulation against deforestation. In addition to ensuring a more gradual and sustainable transition, the objective remains to ensure that San Marino companies can compete on equal terms in European bioeconomy market, avoiding penalties while ensuring compliance with the environmental and social standards required by the Union. We will continue to work on the issue and hope that the future San Marino Regional Urban Forestry Action Plan will be promoted as much as possible in the countries in the EC region and beyond, also thanks to the work of the CAFE. We will continue to work on the issue and hope that the future San Marino Regional Urban Forestry Action Plan will be promoted as much as possible the country's EC regional and beyond, also thanks to the work of CAFE. Finally, I would like to emphasize the importance of the work carried out by the CAFE Secretariat. The results were evident during the 83 committee session at the beginning of November. There were many participants and many topical and interesting issues discussed. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to very success in Work 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you also for leading us right onto the scene of the San Marino Action Plan and why we actually developed it back at this session in San Marino. We at UNECE have tried to link the local to the national and to the regional, and how this works in practice, and how what the goals are, what these local initiatives bring to the national stage is what Mr. Keith Anderson will tell us now in a presentation. Mr. Anderson is the Forest and Climate Policy Officer from the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland, and like our Executive Secretary, also a steadfast supporter of our work on urban forests and urban trees. Keith, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Liliana, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. This is also one of these areas that we've really seen both the cooperation with UNECE and also the efforts in Switzerland growing. So it's been a very sort of fruitful combination of efforts. As you can never underestimate the importance of the international engagement, also spurring the national engagement. So while we don't have a national urban forestry strategy, we do have a series of national strategies such as biodiversity, such as valuing and valuation of ecosystem services. Also the guide that UNECE produced just before COP30, a little bit in this way. We're working in an organized way with the cantons. Thank you for putting up the slides that I have, just a few of them, since I have 5 minutes. This is actually an early modeling of a building that actually exists in Bern. This first page, if you could go back to that. Sort of in the idea of also building green, not only greening around it. As you can see in front, there's also the establishment of green areas in the cities, but also, and this is in a way a combination of dedicated city planners and architects, and also people who were interested in financing, pre-financing this kind of new construction. So this is in Bern, this picture. And then also with the global climate goals, of course, that's what the UNECE has brought in very strongly with this challenge, as well as the network of experts in the region. So the next slide, I would just give you a small idea of how the task force, the informal task force, which we joined recently, is thinking, which are the most important recommendations to promote urban forestry, greening of cities. First of all, of course, direct engagement and action at city level. And then also the need for tools to support city-level action, as UNECE is very active in this area, providing tools and quantification for the activities, and also recognition. I think recognition internationally is also helping to encourage these efforts in Switzerland, and so the tools and support, and also building on the needs and experiences. This is particularly something that the needs and experiences we have in Switzerland are quickly growing, both the needs and the experiences. So the sharing through the network is important. And that's the next point, is fostering peer exchange, developing action-oriented tools to support cities, robust data for evidence-based management, and key role of multi-level action. So I think these two last points are one of the strengths of all of the examples that I looked at in Switzerland, that it's a data-rich environment, and it's there's a lot of indicators and evaluation happening in greening and work in cities, and also this is at different levels. So in the next slide, I'll give you just a short overview of, well, these are the three most cited examples. They're the biggest, Zurich and Basel and Geneva. And these three cities are pioneers in different ways, both at the scale in which they're greening and in their different kinds of approaches. So I looked at these three examples. I left out Lausanne because it basically is quite similar to some of the things I found for Geneva. So I then plugged in the recommendations of the task force on city level engagement to the left, tools for action, peer exchange and collaboration, and data for evidence-based management, and just compared the approaches and the strengths of each of these different programs. So of course, each one, since there's no national strategy, has its own concept, which I think is a healthy thing. It's good to coordinate these, but it's not necessary that they follow a blueprint. And so you have a city. The first one in Zurich is you have trees and cities concept. In Basel, you have a greening concept, and in Geneva, you have a canopy concept for how one engages. And citizens are in all three of these very strongly encouraged to participate, and are actually driving some of the development of the concept and the evolution of it. And there's a large showing, and there's a lot of interest, particularly because, well, I would say in most of the cities, it also raises property values. Then in terms of tools for action, of course, Zurich is very strong on GIS-based mapping of canopy, and heat is very important in Zurich because there are studies and there is an implementation of air currents methodologies that actually affect the way that new buildings are approved and developed, which kind of concepts are approved. Then there's also in Basel more spatial planning and climate modeling tools being used. And then in Geneva, high resolution satellite imagery, LiDAR. That's really one of the strengths of Geneva, this strong on information. And then the peer exchange and collaboration. You have the Stadtinitiative Klima for the Swiss networks in Zurich. You have ICLE in Basel. And then there's a more sort of a database, carbon sequestration, climate-based approach in Geneva. And then for Zurich also for data and evidence-based management, tree health and ecosystem service data is one of the prominent characteristics, whereas in Basel, tree inventory, air quality, heat mitigation metrics are applied. And finally, in Geneva, there's a comprehensive database, including carbon sequestration. So let me finish with the last slide and go basically to some of our questions that we have and that I just wanted to put out to the group is, how do we move from the larger cities that have a strong record of greening to some of the smaller ones, and including ones where the mayor, where the city planning might be either in favor of greening or not so much because of maintenance costs or just because of the way the cities are laid out. Some of the smaller cities are also older cities and have a lot of ancient and culturally important areas that don't allow easily the introduction of very many trees. And so, but still, there are very interesting groups working at the grassroots level, linked to the federal city government and the NGOs, that are experimenting with different kinds of interesting initiatives that are actually driving from different directions, from art or from public gatherings, including concerts and events, how the greening is spreading in some of the smaller cities. And then we're working less on a strategy, but more on a national concept in Switzerland of urban forestry, and also on a coordination effort that's called CORE, which is between the FOA and the cantons and the communities. And then finally, what kind of data quality and availability would facilitate more government and private sector action? This is happening both at the city level, but also we really encourage UNECE to continue driving this kind of work on being able to actually assess the impact of the activities. We think the information drives the action. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Keith, and yeah, definitely very inspiring questions to all the cities present today, to all of us, to also the national delegates. I think one slogan that I'm taking out of your speech, the executive secretary's speech, as well as the ambassador's speech, it's really together we are strong at all levels. You said multi-level, and that's definitely where we come in as well, the international level. But it all starts with the cities. And this is where I hand over to my colleague, Daniel Griswold, because we have new cities joining, and these new cities have pledged to change the green world in their cities. And how that works and what is needed to do that, we will hear now in our next segment. Daniel.
Thank you so much, Liliana, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Great to see so many of you here, so many familiar faces and also many new faces. I always love these exchanges. These are building on some events we've been having over the last years. We have a very strong group, and I'm glad to see it continuing to grow. With thanks to all of the opening speakers, we're now going to move into the segments that are more focused on peer exchange. So we will have some panels, but there will be very short presentations from cities, followed by opportunities for discussion. So it's actually a really great presentation just now, raising some questions that we might also think about in the discussion by Mr. Anderson. The first segment will be about the Trees in Cities Challenge Cities Spotlight. We will have two panels of 4 cities each. So the first one will be Geneva, Montreal, Ouagadougou, and Reykjavik. And then we will have a time for discussion. After that, we will have a panel with Berlin, Denver, Matosinhos, and Medellin. And again, we will have time for discussion. After that, we will have a second segment focusing on the Trees in Dry Cities Coalition, which my colleague Stefania will be moderating. So I'll let her introduce that in due course. And then we will end with a segment on the UN Petite Forest Network, which is about bringing urban forests even into very small urban spaces. So I will go very quickly through some slides here, but they're going to be quick. I have some QR codes. Feel free to take a screenshot when they come up, because I will not linger on those slides very long. So you're forewarned that they will be coming. So find your print screen. I think most of us on the call understand why we're talking about urban trees and forests. Cities are a focal point for many impacts that are affecting lives, that are affecting economies, that are affecting the environment, from heat waves and flooding to air pollution and many other impacts. Rapid urbanization is also something that is leading to a loss of biodiversity and natural habitats, and there's a difficult balance for city leaders there who are also trying to find enough space for housing, for economic growth, etc., and trying to find that right balance. And then urban residents often face challenges linked to the lack of green spaces. So today, we're here celebrating cities that are trying to find that balance, that are making pledges to plant trees, to increase their green cover as nature-based solutions that can protect, sustainably manage, and even restore ecosystems to address societal challenges and even deliver many economic benefits. So for those of you who are not already part of the Trees and Cities Challenge, you are very much welcome to join us. Here's a QR code, the first, so you can practice your screenshots if you are not familiar with them. We have already over 130 cities across more than 60 countries. It's a fabulous network for peer exchange. We have lots of events among the cities, lots of engagement, lots of substantive discussions. We've had cities pledge more than 16.5 million trees. We have already more than 20 million trees planted because many cities are exceeding, and both these numbers continue to increase, which is really something that we find to be fantastic. So as we just heard, for example, we went at the UN Forum of Mayors here, hosted by UNECE. We just had 40 new cities. We had a lot of mayors in the room. Once we got the message to the mayor, they were very much supportive. So if you're in a city, get this message to your mayor. You may be surprised how supportive they are. We had more than 2.7 million trees pledged. And together we are demonstrating the immense power of local action to achieve global climate and sustainability goals. And this is why we will hear also about some of our work linking local to national and global action later today. Here's the second set of QR codes. So if you're interested, in addition to the Trees and Cities Challenge, we have a Trees and Dry Cities Coalition. This brings together cities together with national level, international organizations, academia, NGOs, civil society, and others, trying to bring more trees to dry cities where it's particularly challenging given resource constraints around water, oftentimes heat, dust, etc. Working through systemic approaches that also bring in the national level. If you're trying to figure out how to bring urban forests into your city and you don't have space, you may be interested in the UN Petite Forest Network, where we're exchanging on practices of bringing these forests into small spaces using different methodologies. And if you want to have twice the benefits of your urban trees and also have them for urban food production, you will be very interested in our Nature Eat Town initiative. Next slide, please. And I will close with this. This is not all of our publications. These are some recent ones, or some of our core ones. To start with would be our policy brief on the left. If you're interested in urban food-based, nature-based solutions, you can look at the quick guide on urban resilience through urban nature. There's a methodology that you can also apply in your city. And if you're coming from the national level or the city level, you may be interested in the case studies in our quick guides on the right-hand side here about delivering the Rio Conventions and integrating urban forestry into national policy. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to invite the leader of the Bristol City Council, Councillor Tony Dyer, to give a scene-setting presentation. And I want to thank Leader Dyer for joining us today. He has a very tight agenda, in addition to budget discussions, where I'm sure he's advocating for urban trees. He's here to share his vision with us. So Leader Dyer, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. It's a very great honour, and I am very happy to talk about some of the things that Bristol has been doing. And what I want to do is to focus on one particular aspect of what Bristol has been doing in regards to trees, and that is something that we call one tree per child. To give you some background to this, back in 2015, Bristol was the European Green Capital. And when we became European Green Capital, one of the things that we pledged to do was to plant a tree for every single primary age child living in Bristol at that time. That was 36,000 trees, and we managed to do not just 36,000 trees, but by the time we got to 2015, the end of 2015, we had planted nearly 50,000 trees. By 2024, the number of trees that we planted had reached 100,000. And over the next 25 years, we expect to plant another 250,000 trees with children within the city. And I think what I want to emphasize about this is when we plant these trees, every tree that is planted with a young child. So the young child is there seeing the tree being planted. And then as that child grows and develops, they will also be able to watch the tree grow and develop. So the tree becomes something they associate very much with themselves. And this allows us to engage the community. And this is something we are very strong in doing in Bristol, is involving our local communities in the decisions of where to plant trees. So we are working with local communities right across the city. We have one of the largest community ecosystems in Europe, with over 1,200 organisations within the city, all working together to tackle the climate and nature emergency. But it's not just about what we do in the city, it's also what we do to connect with the surrounding countryside as well. So working with our local region, Bristol and its local area has been designated as a national forest. And as part of that, we now have a plan in place to plant 20 million trees in the next 25 years in the countryside surrounding our city. It would be the largest new forest planted in England since World War II. And it's very much involving local people. It is very much involving local communities, getting involved, choosing where the trees are being delivered, and also working with them to understand that the trees we are planting today are in many cases different to the trees we would have planted in Bristol 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And the reason for that is because climate change is happening, and climate change means that we have to adjust and choose different types of trees, because some of the trees that would have thrived in the English environment 5 years ago will no longer thrive in the English environment that we are facing in 10, 15 years' time. So it's also sending a message across to our residents and our communities and our children about the importance of the impact of climate change. The other thing I want to quickly cover, because I do not want to take up too much of your time, is to talk about why we need to ensure that action to deliver trees in cities is also supported by our surrounding regions, because often, because of changes in agricultural practice, trees often have more nature within them. Cities often have more nature within them than the surrounding countryside. So it's important for us to create corridors to allow nature to be able to move from within the city to the surrounding countryside. The other reason why this is vitally important is because today more than half of humanity calls a city home, and that number is only growing. This reality gives cities an extraordinary responsibility and an unparalleled opportunity to lead the charge towards a just transition. With our deep local insight, our democratic legitimacy by involving our residents, and our close connection to our communities, cities are not just participants in climate action, we must be the driving force. If we act boldly together, we can turn ambition into impact and ensure a future that is fair, sustainable, and thriving for all. Bristol is very proud to be part of this community, working together with everyone else. We hope that you are able to learn from some of the things that we have been doing in the past, and we'll hope to be able to join you in the things that we need to do in the future. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much, Leader Dyer. That was an amazingly powerful speech. And you brought up so many important topics, but I think most of all, the motivation for this community to work together and also to link, as you mentioned, I know Bristol has Pledge to the Trees and Cities Challenge, and you have even more when you look be outside to the region. And those linkages across levels of government as well are very important. And it's particularly, I think, a great story to hear that from engaging with the community, you saw the support for this work. And so that they're mutually reinforcing. So thank you so much for this. I know that you have a tight schedule today. I don't know if you want to open for one or two questions or if you need to hop off. Sure. So if there are any very, very quick questions for Leader Dyer, please raise your hand right now. And I will give you about 15 seconds. And if not, we will move on to the panel. And we can also come up to a more specific peer exchange later on. And I know that you can also reach out to us if you're interested to connect with any of the speakers bilaterally. For those of you who don't know how to raise your hand, it's in the top of your thing. Here we go. Okay, Mr. Johannesson, please. The floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Hi. What type of trees are you planting now in Bristol?
Okay, thank you. What we're tending to plant is trees that previously would have been more likely to be planted in close to Mediterranean conditions. And in particular, what we're looking at planting are fruit trees. Because that also allows us, because one of the other key things we're looking at is food production within the city. And one of the things we want to encourage people is to help them substitute fruit from the trees within the city, so that it also helps us by planting in areas where we know there is a lot of deprivation. It also allows us to encourage people to eat more healthily as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Thank you so much. I think you made Liliana very happy
Very
there.
happy.
This is her area of work.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. I know you need to go, and we also need to move on with the agenda today. So I want to thank you very much, and then I will open the first panel of cities. So thank you very much, Leader Dyer.
Thank you very much.
With that, I am very pleased to welcome Ms. Sandra Spissinger from the Republican Canton of Geneva to share very briefly her remarks. We will have remarks from all four panelists, and then I will open the floor for discussion. We are also able to share from our side if that would be easier for the slide, so please let us know.
Okay, so hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Would you like us to share the slides?
Yes, please, if you can. I just have two slides. You're the first one. Thank you. Great, I can see. So thank you very much for inviting us to present the Geneva tree planting strategy. So my name is Sandra Spissinger. I work for the Canton of Geneva, and I'm responsible for the Geneva tree planting strategy, which was approved by the government 1.5 years ago and fixes two main objectives: to have 30% tree canopy cover by 2070. The base year is 2019, where we had 21% tree cover. And a second objective is that none of the sectors is below 10% canopy cover. To further define our tree planting strategy, we defined prioritization factors, which are the population density. Areas where the population density is more than 8,500 residents per square kilometers. The physiological equivalent temperature, which is the perceived temperature during summer, which is above 36 degrees, and the actual canopy cover. If you cut over the three, you see the map below on the left-hand side. Those are the areas in Geneva where we should focus on planting trees. You can go to the second slide. So the main challenges that we face in Geneva is, first of all, to find space. I don't know, some of you might know Geneva. It's a very densely built city. There's not a lot of space, not above ground, neither below. There's a lack of housing. So very often it's housing or trees, and it's difficult to vary the two of them. And below ground, it's also extremely crowded with all kinds of pipes. So very often planting trees means to relocate pipes somewhere else, which is very expensive and means a lot of road work. A second challenge we face is to change the way we look at trees. We very often face urban planners for who trees are still something nice to have. And we want to really focus that trees are essential in cities, and they have to be integrated into any development project right from the start. So there is space that we know right from start where the trees should be planted, that we do everything not to cut down trees, and that we consider trees as important as any building or road or whatever should be built. And a third challenge is the quality. It's not only that we need to plant trees, but we need to plant trees in a way that they have the opportunity to grow into big and mature trees that provide us the ecosystem services we need. So meaning we need the quality of an urban tree planting bed and the size. We need water, so water management and the choice of species, which is very important. So that is in a nutshell from the canton of Geneva.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bissinger. And I want to thank you in particular for keeping to the very short time we've given. This is to allow more time for discussion. And now all of the other speakers, you have a model to follow. So thank you also for going first. I will move straight to the next presentation. So please save any questions for the end, but very interesting, huge, ambitious target to increase by 9% canopy cover. So maybe some questions there. So with that, I'm pleased to invite Ms. Irène Cloutier, Planning Advisor on Climate Resilience from Montreal, to present on how Montreal is measuring success beyond tree counts. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Am I sharing my slides, or do you have them up already?
You can pull them up if that's easier for you.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. So I'm Irène Cloutier from the City of Montreal, from the Office of Ecological Transition and Resilience. I don't specifically work on tree planting. I have many colleagues that do, and I work more on climate resilience, on heat waves, and more generally. So I was asked to present some of the issues that we have in Montreal, and I decided to focus on how is Montreal measuring success beyond tree counts. So I agreed with the previous challenges from the previous speaker. We have the same challenges here in Montreal. And next slide, please. We are a city of extremes with very hot and humid summers, but very cold and snowy winters. So that brings some challenges as well. In our Montreal Climate Plan, the main action on tree planting is the Action 20, to plant, to maintain, and to protect 500,000 trees in zones vulnerable to heat waves by 2030. So we're about halfway there now. You have the numbers up on the screen here for 2024. So add some numbers for 2025, which is completing now. But more importantly, what we're looking at and trying to figure a better way to do is the percentage of planting in priority areas. We're now at 71% for that, which is fairly good. And we worked hard to attain that number. So I will explain how we went beyond tree count by really thinking about the vulnerability and equity issues in our city for the tree planting, but also a challenge with managing our vegetation in a northern climate. Next slide, please. So mainly, initially, we started off with we already had a vulnerability map to heat waves that you see here with traditional, sensitivity data, social, environmental, physical, and territorial data to really help us plan certain actions in terms of heat waves and preventing heat waves. But we found that this was not enough. As you can see, there was a lot of red in this map. And so we needed really to find a way to prioritize our tree planting, but also our greening initiatives in a more, let's say, surgical way to really come into the neighborhoods and see where we needed to plant and where we could plant, which would be more useful for our citizens. So next slide, please. So what we came up with is a strategy, so really methodology to add extra indicators to help us plan this. So we had our vulnerability to heat map, but we also had, of course, our urban heat island map and tree canopy map, the three first ones that you see. The new elements that we added is our public health indicators for heat vulnerability, which includes people, for example, people with chronic diseases, elderly person living alone, namely, low usage of air conditioning in certain neighborhoods in link with the energy consumption in certain neighborhoods. So that was added to the indicators to really precise where we wanted to plant in priority. We also added some socioeconomic vulnerabilities, namely people with urgent housing needs, low-income individuals, single mothers, recent immigrants. So in our neighborhoods, where were these categories of people and how we could plan this more specifically. And also the last one, planting in residential areas. So we had in our map, of course, some areas are big heat islands, but sometimes they're an airport, they're a commercial area, an industrial area where there's no residents. So this is not as useful as planting in the neighborhoods where the people are, where the community facilities are. So that's really where we prioritize this work. Next slide, please. So this helped us to really come and plant in certain areas, like here in the park extension area of Montreal, where we really tried to do more work in terms, again, of planting trees, but also greening in general. And next slide, please. And finally, now we're looking into going from 2-dimension to a 3-dimension mapping tool with a universal thermal climate index with a university partner, which really looks at a neighborhood in terms of course, the sun, the canopy, but also the surfaces, the buildings, and the air distribution in the neighborhood to really demonstrate how we could better the impact of our tree planting in our neighborhoods. Next slide, please. But one challenge that we have, and I'll go very briefly on this, is managing our vegetation in a northern climate. So we have, of course, big snowstorms, we have windstorms, but we also have ice storms, which really are play havoc on our trees. As you can see here, 2 years ago, a major ice storm had an estimated impact of about 4,500 branches that were broken, 900 trees impacted all across the island of Montreal, but mostly in our neighborhoods with high tree canopy. So that's a big challenge. Of course, there's power outages linked to that. And so our energy provider tends to want to do some tree pruning more actively and really reduce our tree canopy, our tree vegetation that we have. And so that's a challenge for us to really make them understand, well, we need to be more surgical about what we're cutting and how we're doing it. So next slide, please. So we're trying to find ways to have tree coexist alongside electrical wires to maintain our existing tree canopy. We can't have all the wires under the earth. That would be much too costly in our existing neighborhoods. So what we're looking at mostly is, well, first we set up a committee with our main energy provider and the city to look at these elements and have these discussions, these important discussions with them. But also we're financing research chairs and research projects on these themes, mainly on the resilience of our urban canopy to climate change, but also looking at how to strengthen tree growth and how to look at how to be more surgical in the ways we're cutting the branches that we need to cut, the most vulnerable ones, so that we can all have what we need, have power, but also have a tree canopy that is healthy in our city. Next slide, please. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Irene. This is an absolutely fascinating presentation, and it also brings up the fact that we're focusing on trees as assets, but they can also be liabilities. So we need to find a good way to manage that balance. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on straight to our next panelist, Mr. Moise Nyon from Ouagadougou, Regional Directorate for the Ministry of Environment. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. So do you hear me very well?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, do you see my screen?
You may, yes, they're not full screen, but we can see your slides.
Oh, okay, all right, thanks. So good evening, good morning, and good evening to everyone, depending on where you are. So I'm Moses Nyon from the Ministry of Environment, Water and Sanitation, especially from the Green Wall initiatives. So I'm very pleased to take part to this meeting to share our experience about the restoration of urban forest. So what I want to share with you today is our experience of restoring of the green belt. So what is the green belt? Green belt is a circular forest with about 2,100 hectares created in 1917 in Burkina to protect a city against the harmful effect of climate changes and also producing ecosystem services for the inhabitants around this forest. So like most of the parts of forest in West Africa, the green belt is subject to degradation. And nowadays, about 46% of this area is degraded due to anthropogenic pressures and all the kind of harmful effect of climate change. So what is the problem with the green belt before we start our project? So on the field, we have extensive agriculture, wandering animals, extensive breeding, illegal capturing of wood, for economic and energy purposes, collecting of aggregate, wild dumping of garbage on the site, and degradation of the vegetation cover. So because of all that drivers, the green belt loss nowadays about 46% of its total area. It's because of that in 2024, please, we initiate a project to reverse the trend of natural resource degradation. So after implementing our projects, was able to restore about 157 hectares of land, and we planted more than 17,000 of trees with 12 local species, and more than 3,000 operators are working on the restored site. They are mainly doing agroforestry and also gardening. So about 41,153 euros is generated to support the site operators' efforts. So what kind of strategy we use for this restoration? So we use a participatory market-based approach to forest restoration. So this approach relies on active involvement of local community in sustainable management of resources. So this approach aims to integrate the social economic needs of the population with the ecological restoration by adding value to non-timber forest products such as fried medicinal plants, resin, and one by involving residents in identifying the species to be valued, regenerating the degraded area, and also implementing the sustainable harvesting processes. So this approach strengthens their sense of ownership and their motivation to preserve the restored ecosystems. So here you can see different picture and of the site before the restoration, and also some picture or the ceremony of the site launch. Here we have the first day of plantation, and on this picture you can see grant of agroforestry and gardening material to support the site operator. So here we can see the site before the implementation of the project and the site in the March 2025. So that's what I got to share with you, and thank you.
Thank you so much. This is really, looking at the pictures, it's an amazing outcome that you've achieved, literally greening the desert while creating jobs, improving food security. Food is a theme coming up a lot today. I'd like, again, in the interest of time, please hold your questions for the panelists. And the last panelist, I would like to invite now Mr. Thorofer Johnson, the head of the Division of Parks and Nature, the Department of Environment and Planning from Reykjavik, Iceland, to take the floor. So going from the desert to Iceland, please. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. From the south of Africa to north in the Atlantic Ocean. Yes, I have two issues to tell you. The drive for planting more trees is, as we have heard, is usually of increasing temperature in cities because trees improve life quality in the cities, and shadows from trees can even save lives. But the situation is quite different in Reykjavik. The location in the North Atlantic is does that the summers are very cool. It's about 10 degrees average temperature in the summer, even though we can get up to maybe 20 or 25 degrees some days. It is usually just around 12 to 15 degrees during daytime. So we are far away from the heat waves seen in southern parts of Europe and even in other, such as Canada and in Africa. We just want the sun to warm us up, so we don't like trees to shade our garden, at least not the main outdoor area. So that's a quite different situation. However, we are aware of all the benefits of vegetation, and especially we want shelter from the wind. We have often windy conditions, and also all the other benefits, psychological and the biodiversity, and simply the beauty of the vegetation. So that's about our location. And then next slide. Or I'm sharing, sorry. Okay. Now, it's some similarities to Geneva we heard before. We need to build more housing in Reykjavik. But we have seen now in recent years that developers want to build as much as possible. They are pushy and often own the plots they are building on. So it's tempting for the city to give into more apartments and more housing, and we get more money, of course, to the city. But this can come out of the expense of the green areas, and we have seen a lot of that in the recent years. So the quality is not as good as it should be in the newest neighborhoods, and also various infrastructures take space from intended green areas such as pipes. There are parking lots and parking garages under down under, and waste solutions and further on. So it has become clear that some of the new developments are not good. There are lack of green spaces, and despite the original plans to have more green spaces. So we have currently put up a group to review the process of developing and developing new neighborhoods with regard to green areas, to see how we can ensure that there is enough green areas and how we can also increase green areas in already built up areas, because we are a rather spread out city, or has been, but now we are building up and densing more. So it's often the green which is cut away. Yes, so we are now looking at different methods and tools to improve the process. And for example, we are now looking at this 300 method, which you might know about. And we are also just now looking at some strategies for forestry, both inside the cities and also the peripheral areas, which is owned by the city. And the main goal for forest is to make a recreational forest, and we have to look at biodiversity and important natural habitats. But we are, of course, planting trees all the time, despite this strategy work. So, yeah, that was all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. It's really a great example, I think, to see, first, on the one hand, what we always say, the right tree in the right place for the right reasons. So we heard a lot of cities who want trees for shade to reduce heat, and here you don't want them for that, but you still want trees. You just have different reasons why you want the trees. I would like to now open up for 2 questions after this panel, and then we will go to the next panel, and we will have more time for discussion after that. So if you have questions for the panelists, please go ahead and raise your hand. Naomi, please, and please try to keep it succinct, because we need to make sure we have time for them to answer and get on to the next panel.
Thank
Please
you,
go ahead.
Daniel. So I'm hearing a lot about tree planting initiatives with varying circumstances. However, there is an existing tree population in every city. And the experience that we have, myself as an urban forester and a consulting arborist, is that trees in the city are only living from 10 to 40 years, when in fact the species we are planting have the potential to live hundreds of years. So my question to the entire panel is, how are you addressing the existing challenges before you go ahead and plant more that are affecting the existing population to enable canopy to grow with what already exists in the ground? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Yeah, very important point that it's not just increasing tree cover, but it's also caring for the trees that we already have. I'm going to just ask if any of the panelists would like to answer that in particular before I call on volunteers.
I can talk about what we do in Geneva.
Please go ahead, Ms. Singer.
Yes. So we are about to change our regulation to enforce the conservation of trees. So because we know that it's more important to protect existing trees, they're already there. And so we try to make it more difficult to cut down a tree in the future. So to work on the preservation on trees and also to improve conditions. So people that like to improve conditions of existing trees, meaning, for example, to enlarge below the tree so they can get more water, they can get subsidies in the future. This is going to be in place early next year.
Thank you.
I can answer a little bit also. In Reykjavik, we also have a problem with that people want to take down trees because they don't have sun in their gardens when they get too big. So it's very difficult. We like to have old trees, and we can get trees up to maybe 100 or 200 years, might be, but But we have seen that, and especially in people take their own trees in their gardens, and we can't do a lot about that because we have no rules about it. But we should try, and then therefore we have to make clear that our own trees we don't take our own trees down in the city land.
Yes, this is also a challenging question with balancing development, and there's different interests and pressures. So it's helpful to have a clear plan there, I think. And we have another round of cities. So I will move on to the next panel, and thank you very much to Geneva, Montreal, Ouagadougou, and Reykjavik for those very interesting case studies. And now I am pleased to invite our panelists from the second panel. And we will be starting with a presentation from the city of Berlin, from Ms. Sandra Naumann, the Chief Biodiversity Officer. Please, Sandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And it would be great if you could share my 2 slides. It would be awesome. So, okay, I only have 2 slides. I try to keep the time. So I was thinking what to bring from Berlin. So I decided to go to show you just what role trees play when it comes to a sponge city, because Berlin already started in the mid-19s to implement the sponge city system in new neighborhoods, because we have the same problems like all the cities have. It's like heat, flooding, and droughts. And so the idea is that we know that traditional drainage systems, they can't cope with those challenges. We have a big problem with combined sewage overflow, and we know that we must treat rainwater as a resource and not as waste. So that's the idea, as you know. It's the sponge city is about the city to absorb, store, and reuse water because we don't have enough. So I brought this picture from our famous Berlin Rainwater Agency that works as a consultant and advisory body in Berlin. And you know, it's different means and measures. So it could be green roofs. You could have permeable pavements. But also what is most important I want to talk about are the tree-based infiltration systems. And if we go to the next slide, I brought you the oldest example that you can find on the left-hand side. It's called Rummelsburger Bay. It's in the east of Berlin, and there was a new neighborhood built in the mid-90s. And it's also a place where you can see how we did experiment around the sponge city. So what was really important, of course, also to include tree planting because it needs a water sensitive design. And as you know, trees are super important to cope with the rainwater for infiltration, storage, and evaporation. And what really we learned over the years, probably it's not new knowledge now, but we need large soil pits because there is on the picture below, you can see on the left hand side, it's a very small tree that was planted, I think 10 years before the trees on the right hand side, and in terms of enlarging but also improving the soil quality and the deepness of the soil pit, the tree was growing much larger. So I think that's also a lot we're learning with. And also in the process we learned, because it looks a bit sad, for example, the pictures on the left-hand side, but now what it's also more important and has been said is including biodiversity, wild plants, and also species that not only cope with climate resilience, but promote biodiversity, because that's most important. And just to come, we also have a big policy framework from the local level with a super new climate adaptation law, which was put up by the citizens, where we have to plant up to 1 million, or we have to increase the number to 1 million trees by 2040, which will be difficult because trees are dying too in our city. We have an EU restoration law at the EU level, and that's my timer. So I know I'm over time. And at the global level, we're also working with cities worldwide on the Berlin Urban Nature Pact. So it's a big thing. But just to say, it's important always to build around trees and with trees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And I appreciate a really interesting example, also keeping to the time. So thank you for that. And I know you made Naomi very happy with your reference to having adequate soil volume. So thank you for that as well on behalf of her. I see that in the chat. And I see a comment please keep your comments to the end of this panel. We are going to go through the 4 speakers and then have a round of comments. So Richard, please, I see you there. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Cole Agenbrod, Forestry Staff Manager from the City and County of Denver, to present. Please, Cole, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It is nice to be here with everyone today. What I wanted to present from Denver's perspective, from a city perspective, is a arboricultural management calculator. Basically, I think one of the biggest difficulties that we have when we are actually going in to plant trees is really requesting funding, requesting personnel, making sure that we are being able to maintain the trees that we do plant. I think the use case for this is not only at a municipality level, but a provincial or a territorial level, where you might have a mayor who's looking to plant an additional 4,000 trees a year, like we were told that our goal was, or potentially you're looking at reducing your pruning cycle from 25 years down to a more manageable 5 to 7 years, is what is the true cost of that? And we were asking ourselves that question. And fortunately, we kind of had a data set that we had been collecting just to see what people were doing over time for the past 17 years. So conveniently, we were able to kind of give ourselves an answer of what does that increasing your canopy by 20%, what does that look like for not only a cost, but also for an increase in the personnel that's needed for this. So I will very quickly walk through, just walk by the data. So we have effectively longitudinal data. We have 17 years worth of data that's been collected over the totality of everything that we've done, from every tree we've planted all the way to every tree that we've pruned. So we've worked with one of the local arboriculture companies to kind of do a little bit of data analysis beyond just Denver, to kind of see what's the norm within the United States and globally. And then we were looking at kind of what we already were utilizing for our staffing to be able to utilize this for justifications for being able to ask for additional staffing depending on what the project was assigned. And then finally, we have a functioning calculator where you can go ahead and input, this is the amount of tree increase that we're looking at, how is it going to reflect on this, or the number of the reduction of maintenance cycle from 25 years to 5 years, what is that going to look like as well? And what we currently have is a functional calculator, or a mostly functional calculator. The goal is to have a fully functional calculator by Q1 of next year. And I also want to use this platform to ask members of the Trees and Cities Challenge and the Trees and Dry Cities Coalition to come and join in the data collection. It sounds like we already have a few people who are interested in doing so. I want to be able to further refine this, not to just have Denver as a sole data source, but to make this usable not only for every member of the Trees and Dry Cities Coalition, Trees and Cities Challenge, but for everyone who may need it, and ideally incentivize people to join us. And then one of the things that we want to do is to be able to gain data from other places within the world. That way, my data from Denver might be a lot different than if you're from Madrid or Cuenca or anywhere like that, to be able to kind of adjust based off of where your region is. And I believe I did go over time, so thank you so much. I look forward to any questions, and then if anyone is interested in having further discussion, please reach out to the lovely folks here at the UNECE, and I would be happy to get into contact with you.
Cool, thank you so much. Always as a pleasure. For those of you who are part of the coalition, you know Cole is quite active. He's helping organize some of our peer exchanges. And I would recommend to anyone who's interested in exchanging with him on this calculator to reach out. It's something we've also been in having some back and forth with him on, and are happy to collaborate on from our side. I will move on to the next speaker now. So I'm very pleased to invite Mr. Tiago Lopes from the municipality of Matosinhos, which for those who do not know is next to Porto in Portugal. He's an environmental engineer with the municipality. Mr. Lopes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, that's right. Can you share my slides? Yeah, there they are. So, hello everyone. My name is Tiago Lopes. I'm an environmental engineer and I work at Matosinhos Municipality. And I will share a little experience of what we have been doing. But first, briefly introduce to the context of the city. Matosinhos is a coastal city north of Portugal, very close to Porto. We are a dense urban municipality, but also a maritime one. And we have established a clear goal to 2030, a commitment to be carbon neutral and a biodiversity hub. Next slide, please. Now the implementation act I want to share is actually very simple. There's nothing particularly high-tech about it, but it has proven to be very effective for us. That's why I will share it. One of the things that really made our work easier, faster, and more cost-efficient is having an ecological park. The Park Ecológico Monte São Brás as a central hub for planting and restoration. Instead of relying on external nurseries or complex procurement processes, we invested in this park, ecological park, as a place where we grow and incubate native plants ourselves. Within the park, we have a nursery and an arboretum where we produce a wide range of native species that are later planted across the territory of Matosinhos in the urban green spaces, ecological corridors, schools, and community planting action. You can pass to the next slide, please. This is a very simple approach, brought several advantages. First, it significantly reduces the costs because producing native plants is much more cheaper than buying them. Secondly, it improved ecological quality since all the species are adapted to the local conditions, which increases the survival rates. And third, it made the implementation much faster. We always have plants ready instead of need to wait for the external suppliers. But what makes this implementation act even more powerful is that the park is not just a technical space. It's also a place for environmental education and community involvement. Schools, volunteers, and local groups usually participate in planting, maintenance, and learning activities. And that creates a strong sense of ownership and makes the whole process more inclusive and equitable. I will just finish with a 1-minute video of the park, and it is in the next slide. Need to press it. One more. Probably it's in PDF file. I don't know.
I think maybe there's a problem on the technical problem on our side. Apologies for that.
No, don't worry. It was just a video of the park. It's more visual. It's always interesting to see it, but I think you get the idea of our implementation act, and hopefully it inspires other cities.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can drop a link to it in the chat so that cities can see it there. And thank you so much, Tiago. It was something that I have to say it's come up in the past as species selection, but something we're hearing more and more today is getting the right species under climate change. And it's great to see your experience and how you're preparing for that for the future. This is a big challenge, is having enough planting material. Last but certainly not least, I'm very pleased to invite Ms. Jenny Marcela Ruiz Saldarriaga, the Secretary of Environment from Medellin, Colombia. Ms. Ruiz Saldarriaga, the floor is yours.
Okay, we are grateful for Beijing selected as a city that can showcase a significant experience in urban transformation, driven by the concept of renaturalization, urban tree planting, and green corridors. This approach enhances the city's ecological connectivity, serves as catalyst for urban transformation towards a more sustainable city that better adapts to climate conditions and builds greater resilience. Medellin's development focus centers of liberating its natural attributes, its topography, its tree cover, and its hydrological resource, which also present a major adaptation challenge. These factors foster a very powerful concept of urbanism in the city, which is now complemented by a renaturalization strategy. This strategy involves incorporating mechanisms into all construction and urban planning proposals to integrate nature as an ally in the process of adaptation and in responding to and solving the environmental change challenge we are experiencing. The renaturalization plan is a long-term strategy that seeks to systematize, document, and validate nature-based solutions appropriate for the city's social, ecological, cultural, and climatic conditions. This is how, Science 2016, the city began a very important governmental policy part of structuring green corridors, restoring natural cover and ecological connectivity through a significant commitment to tree planting and the design of functional gardens. This is intended not only to beautify the city and recover and manage its landscape, but also to improve the quality of public space for citizens and, of course, generate better habitat conditions for many species that communicate regionally and the Medellin territory. This commitment is fundamental because it has a strong institutional backing supported by the policies of the Medellin Mayor's Office. It also incorporates into DNA of the universities, urban planners, and the construction sector, and therefore has significant support. The city has strengthened its public policy instruments, including the land use plan, which is a long-term instrument that plans based on the recognition and adequate management on the city's ecological structure. It promotes land use, naturally favoring the sustainable and ecosystem service and those crucial areas that require comprehensive and adequate management. We are, therefore, a very important governance benchmark in the alliance among the private sector, the public sector, academy, and the courts, the citizens, in the concept for design a city where we can transform gray into green. And now we also manage the stream and creeks, the river, and the water network through the concept of blue corridors. This is based on a very significant commitment to governance and long-term policies, allowing for investment and hydraulic optimization in the city's management by understanding and effectively managing those ecological conditions that define the city. We are grateful that we can be a benchmark for all this accumulated experience and knowledge for the institutional solidity that has been gained and built with a very important contribution from all sectors and from the management of financial mechanisms and instruments that allows this to happen. This should be projected on not only in the short and medium term, but also in the long term, articulated with climate action plans, urban forestry plans, biodiversity plans, and other tax policy that incentives and promote al sector to come to a city that is renaturalizing, that is regreening, and also adopting mechanisms for better water and climatic condition management to favor risk management, and of course, adaptation and social inclusion with are fundamental. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ruiz Saldarriaga. It's really interesting to hear also you bringing in the dimension of, as a nature-based solution, managing this together with the blue infrastructure in the city, very strong participation with the community, having a social perspective here. And I know Medellin has done so much in urban development and urban planning, so it's really great to see this strong emphasis on renaturalization as well. So with this, I would like to thank the panelists. We've had lots of different really useful experiences. I've been having people chatting me, asking for the presentations, saying that they want to copy what you're doing. I think that we will have some more exchange bilaterally. And a lot of this material also helps us in terms of the tools and the initiatives that we do going forward. So please, if you found anything today that you would like to learn more about, do reach out to us here at UNECE. And with that, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Ms. Stefania Romano, who many of you also know, who is one of the hearts of our community, who will moderate the next segment on water-wise and resilient urban forests. Stefania, please, the floor is...
Daniel. So many insights, experiences, challenges, so much richness coming from the city, so much work to be done through us, through UNECE. Thanks for that. And now we will dive into the second segment, Trees in Dry Cities Coalition. As you heard from the Executive Secretary, we have 3 major urban forestry initiatives, and the Trees in Dry Cities Coalition is the second of them. Next slide, please. In fact, what began as a shared commitment has grown in a space of collaboration, learning, and collective action. We launched Trees in Dry Cities Coalition in Dubai at COP28, and that brought together key stakeholders around a simple but powerful conviction. Even in the driest cities, trees must and can thrive. And since the moment, I have to say that the coalition has moved towards action. Throughout 2024, we had 4 operational meetings that shaped a strong action agenda, very pragmatic action agenda, co-created, next slide please, by coalition members. And this agenda is a clear pillar of collaboration, where we aim very much to be impacting global, national and local agendas, enhancing knowledge, awareness and capacity, and translating commitments into tangible action on the ground. The coalition's growing influence was further affirmed at UNCCD COP in Riyadh in 2024, with a dedicated session on finance and policy, addressing one of the most critical enablers of implementation. And then looking ahead to 2025, the coalition has continued to scale impact, and we have had a series of technical webinars on water specifically. We have developed 2 major urban forestry guides that later our expert will tell us more about. And next year we will aim to be also publishing a policy brief on finance. And all this is designed to support cities in turning ambition into living urban landscapes. Next slide, please. So this is just to say that the coalition is not just a collection of ideas. It's a coalition of practice, of partnership, and of delivery, which is absolutely, obviously rooted in dry cities and growing global solutions. As you can see, these are the 3 pillars of cooperation from our side, from the coalition: policy, action, and community of practice. And in this very segment, we will talk about the systemic approach. Like we will hear highlights on systemic policy approaches and initiatives which anchor urban forestry actions into local actions and context. And with that, I would give the floor to the first speaker, Mr. Belal Sishat is Director of Biodiversity Ministry of Jordan. We have been working with Belal, have to say, quite comprehensively. He has also been part of the interviews that brought to the development of the guidance. Belal, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you very much for all. I am happy to be with you in this time and talking about our coalition and what we did last time. I was glad to be with this coalition from beginning, and I thank you very much, Stephen, for your invitation for Jordan and how we start to establish this coalition and how we can how we was thinking on many issues, how we make it more stronger and put this in the track. Maybe yes, we are working through Coming Montreal framework, as all you know, as me was the focal point for CBD to have special targets about urban area or fostering or planting or have a green space in urban area, which is very important now. And all of you now know the recommendation come from health organization that we should have 9 square meters for each person in cities as green areas, which is that very important issue and should be both on special planning and reduction of our needs. I think this is help us to go in direct for implementation in Coming Montreal and how we can take fund through Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and working on restoration and have green spaces. We are in Jordan covered that's in our national biodiversity action plan, strategy and action plan, and we reflect it very well and make link with climate change policy and land degradation neutrality for UNCCD. We thinking now to work on a green belt around Amman, which is capital of Jordan, how we can make it. Uh, last week, the prime ministers take a new decision to establish a new city. It is close between two cities in Amman, between Amman capital and Zarqa. This is to can get the increasing of population in Jordan and how we can establish this. One of main issues now starting to thinking it about how we can get green spaces and garden or good areas for health for peoples. So yesterday the prime minister asked it to put all needs about this and how we can forward on this topic. And we ask our colleagues in NGO, the Royal Society for Nature Conservation, to make a draft of design for these areas to be in line with that. Yes, this is very important now issue. We are focusing many time on this, and we try best to be in this issue. Last year, we finishing our cooperation with federal government of Germany through GIZ to implement big projects, cash for work. This project was very important to rehabilitate many areas in urban areas to increase the green areas between cities, which was very success, and we training more than 3,000 people and young women on these applications to have green to be as green jobs for them in the future. This is I think now what we are going to do, and we're thinking to build more on this topics in coming days. Thank you very much.
So much, Bilal. Great to have you close to the coalition. As you can see, the coalition brings together a systemic approach. That's what we're trying to be doing. As Bilal was absolutely saying, like the global protocols and frames, the national plans, and then the local endorsement, so that the three kind of levels can, interact and facilitate a chain of the machine. And we look forward, Bilal, to the next steps to be working together the next year. Thanks for that. And with that, I would move to Mr. Davlat Ali Sharif Sovda, is Deputy Director Forestry Agency under the Government of the Republic of Tajikistan. And he will tell us about the green belt. What are the objectives, the challenges, and how somehow you might be envisioning such other projects in other Tajik cities. Mr. Sharif Soda, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Daniel. Good evening, everyone. I am saying this because it's 7 p.m. here. Sorry, for my English, it's not so good. First of all, I want to express my gratitude for the opportunity to participate and be part at this event. Next slide, please. Brief information about the city of Dushanbe. Dushanbe is the capital of the Republic of Tajikistan. Population more 1,200,000. Total area more 200 square kilometers. Elevation above sea level 700 to 800 meters. Next slide, please. Impact of climate change on the environment in the Republic of Tajikistan, Dushanbe city. Next slide, please. The charts show the average number of dust storm and dust haze days per year in Dushanbe. As you can see, they tend to increase. Next slide, please. The current situation of urban greening in the city of Dushanbe and its surrounding areas. As the table shows, the current area of forest and parks in Dushanbe is approximately more 1,600 hectares. On average, there are more than 10 square meters of forest and parks per capita, which is little.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. The main goals of creating a green belt around the city, covering an area of our 1,000 hectares in Dushanbe, are reducing air pollution, creating a health environment. The government of Republic of Tajikistan, by resolution number 374 of 2024 adopted the state program for greening the Republic of Tajikistan for the period up to 2040. The action plan of the program provides for the implementation of greening measures throughout the country, including around populated areas. Next slide, please. Main objective of the state program: improvement of environmental health, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, promotion of the development of a green economy, establishment and restoration of forest and protected forest belts, ensuring sustainable development and environmental security, reduction of negative environmental impacts through the implementation of climate change adaptation measures, development of economic mechanism for greening, improvement of regulatory and legal frameworks, increasing public environmental awareness on greening issues, expansion of the number of nursery and nursery enterprises. Next slide, please. Next. Action plan of the state program for 2025-2027, establishment and organization of the operation of new nursery on an area of 2,400 hectares, planting of more than 11 million seedlings by 2040, more than 2 billion seedlings. Next slide, please. Plan measures for the establishment of the green belt in the city of Dushanbe within the framework of the state program, establishment of small modern nurseries on an area of 25 hectares, implementation of forestation activities on an area of more than 1,000 hectares, planting of more than 1 million seedlings. Next slide, please. Existing main problems of greening and ways to address them. Problems: climate change, exposure frequent, especially frequent droughts, shortage of high quality planting material, low level of mechanization and greening activities. Ways to address them: planting drought-resistant species and using drip irrigation, establishment of modern nurseries, strengthening the material and technical base of organization carrying out greening activities. Next slide, please. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharif. So that very interesting to see how in Central Asia as well, specifically in Tajikistan, you're carrying out such important greening steps and actions. Very ambitious targets from now to 2040. You have a lot of work to be doing, and that will be, I'm sure, absolutely great opportunities to be working within our network as well through the coalition. Thanks for that. And with that, I pass to our colleague and friend, Mrs. Sharon Gill. She's from UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program. And she's program manager, program management officer of the and cities lead. Sharon is just back from Belém, from COP30, where a very interesting multilateral initiative has been launched, the Canopy Pact, that UNECE has also been invited to be participating, and we are very glad to be hearing more from Sharon from COP30 and how multilateralism can come across the coalition as well. Thank you, Sharon. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefania. I wonder if thank you very much. So indeed, I have to clarify, Stefania, I wasn't in Belém. I was, but the Canopy Pact was launched in Belém by our, I was in Rio for the city summit. I'd like to say thank you, first of all, to UNECE and colleagues in UNECE. I see Daniel, Liliana on the screen, who have been very supportive of the Canopy Pact. And of course, I also saw that Alex is in the call as well. FAO has been also been very supportive of this work. So I work for the UN Environment Program, and I always start by talking about UNEP because not everybody is familiar with what UNEP does, and we are the agency that works with countries in steering the global environmental agenda. And what we do in UNEP is tell the big story. So we've been talking about how useful trees are in cities in the past few presentations. Let me zoom out a little bit in how trees are serving us as humanity. Next slide, please. So in Belém and even before that, in the emissions gap report, we have been talking about the issue of overshoot, how we are saying that even if we fulfill all of our nationally determined contributions, we will be exceeding the 1.5 threshold. But this does not mean that we are giving up on 1.5 as a goal. We are instead looking at 1.5 from the top down rather than from the bottom up. And I want to start here because a lot of people, myself included, when it first came out, when the discussions and the negotiations around 1.5 global temperatures came around, there was really very limited understanding of what does it mean if we reach 1.5, if we go beyond 1.5. In UNEP, we say every fraction of a degree matters, which means that even 1.5 is introduces a lot of uncertainty, extreme heat, increased rainfall, which translates to, of course, flooding in many parts of the world, which means it also means increased wind speeds, etc., etc. So, but what I want to stress here is that the fact that the Secretary General has already said that we need to look at a world in overshoot means that we are facing the problem. And this is very, very important because we must face this with a lot of optimism. And I believe that because the world, as we know it, humanity, we're very innovative. We find solutions when we know what the problem is. So we know what the problem is. We are in a world of overshoot. We're looking at exceedance. We're looking to peak. And from that peak, how do we go down? Now, subnational governments are both highly vulnerable, but also uniquely positioned to drive mitigation, adaptation, and equitable green growth. And I want to stress that because what a world in overshoot means is we need to accelerate both mitigation and adaptation action. Next slide, please. Sorry, I can probably control it. So forests are central to addressing overshoot. And one, because forests are carbon sinks. It's a mitigation measure, but within cities, our urban forests are also very much an adaptation tool. Our forests that are close to our cities protect our watersheds. They prevent flooding. They cool our cities. So it has a lot of ecosystem services that I won't repeat them now because they were already shared by colleagues in earlier discussions. So, but in many cities, the connection between the forests and the population, which used to be when we needed our forests to sustain our daily life, when we had a stronger connection, this connection was there. But this has been broken. We no longer know where the wood for our houses comes from. We no longer know where our fruits come from. Some of us don't, where it used to be that we had innate knowledge of what the trees looked like. I grew up climbing trees, but my children don't. So, you have this connection with the forest that we're slowly losing. And what we want to build with the canopy pack, facing a world in overshoot, is that there is a need not only to plant trees and to recognize the importance of trees as they serve us as human beings, but to build that cultural connection of coexistence with the forests that we live in. So a few cities around the world, including yours, and many examples today, have been looking at this and looking at the ecosystem services. And I won't mention them anymore, but you can see them in the slides. Next slide, please. So the Canopy Pact aims to heal this connection and address as a way to build mitigation and adaptation action. What it does, first of all, is build a roadmap between COP30 in Belém in Brazil towards the CBD COP in the COP17 in Yerevan in Armenia. We've started this. Brazil is very supportive of this, and of course the initial contact with our colleagues in Armenia. So we're building this next milestone towards COP17, and you will notice that it is not climate COP to climate COP. It's climate COP, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, towards the Convention on Biological Diversity. So it's connecting the climate and the biodiversity agenda. So we're also looking not just at the urban landscape, but the peri-urban and global forest landscapes. So looking at how we are part in our cities of a much bigger ecosystem. And last but not least, it looks at how we, as I count myself in this equation, we who live in cities or are also urban dwellers, urban advocates, we have choices that influence forest protection, restoration, and reforestation beyond our city boundaries. So the question that is posed here, how do we actively engage our subnational and local governments towards mobilizing the city's agenda, the forest agenda? Next slide, please. I think I've spoken to this, so next slide, please. So the Canopy Pact complements and strengthens initiatives such as l'Appel de la Forêt, which was launched by the Mairie de Paris and the Francophonie community, Cities for Forests, Trees in Cities, the UN RED program, so even the bigger, broader programs as well. It's a work in progress. I would like to apologize to colleagues who have been engaging in this because we haven't gotten to the next step yet. After Rio, we've had bilateral conversations nonstop during the UN Environmental Assembly, and I owe a lot of you an update. But the next big milestone is the CBD COP17 in Yerevan, and we are looking for partners towards COP17. It highlights, we also have champion cities such as Paris, Seattle, Curitiba, which are demonstrating leadership in sustainable procurement, education, innovation, and forest positive consumption. And each of these cities, and including yours, and networks as well of cities working in forests, all have specific contributions towards this bigger story that we are trying to build, from Belém to Yerevan, connecting national to local, as well as connecting the biodiversity and climate agenda. So I'll end here and give it back to you, Stefania. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So from forests to cities to people, from the climate to biodiversity, and now after the launch, it's about positioning and working together collectively. Thanks for that. And with that, I would give the floor to Russell Galt, always in the same frame of the Trees in Cities Coalition, because we have been working very closely with Russell in developing the two urban forestry guides that have been disseminated a while ago, and we will be more circulated after this very summit. When we had the interviews with Kelly Mane in Mozambique, Chef Shuan in Morocco, Cuenca in Ecuador, but also with Jordan national government and with the Italian national government, we really have been able to be getting so interesting insights that then Russell put into this guidance. And now it will tell us more about what's the next step. How can we implement those guides? Russell, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stefania. And I realize that the announcement of new policy guidance is rarely the sort of thing that sets the pulses racing, especially after lunch. But I do hope I can persuade you of the value of these two documents. The first being quick guide on using urban forestry as a delivery mechanism for the Rio Conventions, and the second being a quick guide on scaling urban forestry with national policy. I hope they are genuinely worth reading. Now, let me start with the problem that they seek to address. We all know that urban forests are workhorses. Sharon spelt that out very clearly for us. They cool the streets, they absorb stormwater, and particularly in dry cities, they help make extreme conditions more tolerable for those who live there. And yet, when national governments submit their grand reports to the United Nations, NDCs, NBSTAPs, and various other acronym-heavy documents, urban trees are often nowhere to be found. They are like Cinderella, working tirelessly, often thanklessly, and rarely invited to the ball. The result is a systemic gap. Urban greening efforts often sit apart from national policy and reporting processes, and this leads to missed opportunities for finance, for recognition, and for scale. Now, we still see silos where foresters and urban planners barely interact, and we still hear climate finance discussions that seem to assume trees only grow beyond urban boundaries. So these two guides are our attempt to hand Cinderella her invitation. The first guide focuses on the Rio Conventions. Its purpose is to help national governments integrate urban forestry explicitly into their commitments under the UNFCCC, the UNCCD, and of course the CBD. So it sets out practical mechanisms for doing so, from quantifying the economic value of urban forests to integrating them into national MRV systems, monitoring, reporting, and verification systems, so that their contributions can be made visible and count towards national targets. Namibia offers a great example. Its nationally determined contribution identifies urban forestry as a priority adaptation measure and commits to establishing 5,000 hectares of urban green space by 2030. Uzbekistan provides another. Its Green Nation initiative mandates the planting of 1 billion trees, with the explicit aim of expanding urban green space to 30%. And for those of you who like a well-kept ledger, the United Kingdom has integrated urban forests into its natural capital accounts. Who said money doesn't grow on trees? The second guide shifts the focus to national policy. If the first is about recognition and reporting, this one is about creating the enabling conditions to generate value at scale. It addresses fragmented governance, chronic underinvestment, and the tendency for ad hoc tree planting rather than long-term strategic urban forestry. That includes maintenance. It recommends the development of dedicated national urban forestry policies supported by a balanced mix of regulation, incentives, and critically, capacity building. Liberia is a case in point. It has set a target of 50% canopy cover across its 5 major cities, including Monrovia, and is coordinating land use planning across ministries to deliver it. France has taken a notably enlightened step, committing to train all mayors nationwide in biodiversity and climate change by 2030, ensuring that decision makers understand the very systems that they are managing. And as we heard from Bilal earlier, Jordan's Ministry of Agriculture is training local communities, thousands of individuals, in park management and hydroponics, building practical capacity where it matters most, on the ground. So why should national governments bother with these guides? Well, first, efficiency. Aligning urban forestry with national targets reduces policy friction and unlocks synergies. Second, finance. Demonstrating that urban trees contribute directly to international commitments improves access to funding from mechanisms such as the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facility. When trees are counted, urban forests count and finance flows. And finally, governance. When governments understand the full public value of urban forests and can demonstrate it transparently, they can make better and more defensible decisions. The evidence tells us that the benefit cost ratios of urban forests are around 5 to 1. So by any reasonable standard, they make a handsome, no regrets investment opportunity. So in closing, I hope these guides can provide national governments with a clear and workable path to support cities in realizing the full potential of urban forests. Taken up seriously, I hope they can bring urban forestry to the center of national policy, finance and reporting, where, of course, it belongs. And finally, I would just like to thank UNECE for the opportunity to work on these guides, and also to the many dozens of individuals from governments, national and local policy experts and practitioners who took the time to meet with us and share their insights and expertise. And I believe that the guides are all the stronger for your generosity. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Russell. Always a pleasure to work with you. You have seen the QR codes of the guides. In any case, you can always reach out to us in order to be having more information about them. I just would like to know if there is any questions from the floor to the speakers. I think that there is a hand up. Gillard, right? The Gillard, correct? Gillian.
Stephanie,
Yeah.
I've managed to unmute, and it's Gillian Dick here from Glasgow. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Yes, right. I'll be very, very quick. I was just going to make a comment about joining all of the stuff together. So Sharon has worked on stuff to do with the UN Generation Restoration, which a number of the cities that may well be in this virtual room have been involved in. And also there is probably a number of cities here who are Berlin Urban Nature Pact, either signatories or working towards it. So I think there is a lot of very good work out there and a lot of study, and it's about bringing all of that together. I'll be interested to see what the guides are saying, but as UNECE, I would say, needs to pick up the work that came from the UN Generation Restoration. That project completes in December, but there is now a community of interest on the Cities with Nature platform that ICLEI are hosting, and they're trying to get those cities to keep talking. And Berlin Urban Nature Pact Berlin has started getting the cities that have signed up to that to start talking as well. So it's about not duplicating and having an eye on all of the different major international bringing together and synergies. There's also the nature-based, the U-Hub that's coming out of IUCN that again is bringing cities and practitioners together and looking at nature-based solutions, trees, etc. And there are a number of nature-based solution hubs around, particularly Europe. The Scottish one is about to relaunch, but there is a Scandinavian one again then hosted by Network Nature via Horizon Europe. So it's worth having an eye and doing some systems mapping of what's already running and making sure you bring those together rather than starting something new.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That's the reason why we came up with a specific guidance, because we do very much care about the work done by other organizations, and we always try to be bringing in a different angle. And absolutely, those tools that you have been mentioning are very much in our radar, and we do collaborate with the other organizations. So thanks for that. I think another question's from Arzu Kutsu-Otsenen.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from Bursa Metropolitan Municipality. We are very new to the program, and it's great to hear all the examples and cases. And I can see that even though they're coming from very different places in our beautiful planet, they have a lot in common. But there's another common problem in this issue, and that's the communication, the awareness of the public. I think it's very important because we are very keen on participatory planning, but even in a situation like this, in a scientific issue like climate change, the public is quite polarized. So is there a guide on communication, or is there a thought of doing it? I would like to ask that. The guides are very useful, I have to say.
Well, the work that we are doing with the coalition and part of our action plan is about the capacity building, communicating, outreach. So it's one of our pillars. Then obviously, it takes time to be developing all different tools because we are a small team, very dedicated, I have to say, but still small.
Yeah, you are wonderful. Thanks for that. Thanks for all the good work.
It's in our mind.
And if I may, a second thing, I think these are wonderful to hear about the cases, but I think the working groups would be wonderful because we have a lot in common with some of the cities and common with lots of cities in other issues. So I think that would be wonderful to keep up with the other cities in small working groups.
This is why we come up very often with the peer exchanges, exactly for that very reason. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Tabi Joda, I see a hand up.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me? Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm speaking from the Lake Chad, one of Africa's biggest biodiversity hub, which is facing a very huge decline and degradation. That was just a highlight from me, but thanks very much for the very beautiful exchanges. Mine is not a question, but it's a comment that sounds both like a question and a recommendation. So it's more of understanding that we've seen different thoughts and ideas from across different experts and perspectives and geographical context, meaning it is really, really important, this subject that we are discussing. But I think we can really take this further in terms of how much are we bringing policy strength or policy heavyweight into this conversation so that it doesn't just stay as an expert conversation on this platform. That is to say, how much can we take this message with high-level recommendations from here to the heads of states, to the ministers, and the different government functionaries that are in charge of the decisions that determine how green or how much of urban tree presence and vegetation we have. So this is very critical. Like I said, it's both like a question, but at the same time, a recommendation or a thought for us to think about how to also determine the thematics and how the outcomes of the thematics can actually inform policy dialogue at the highest level. And on a practical basis, I invite you to see what we are doing in Africa with 1 billion trees for Africa in shaping the different context on the ground, and also to take from here that there is a need to talk about trees as a source of food access and food security. You know, for those who have read very well the Bible, who understand that the envisioned paradise of Eden or Garden of Eden is an environment where people can walk on the street and then pluck an apple freely from the tree and eat. This is a concept that we introduced in Marrakesh in Morocco, you know, which is working very well. If you move around the Medina area in Morocco, you can harvest oranges from the street trees in the urban area and you can eat that. And this is a very big solution for urban food security and food access, as the case may be. And in terms of biodiversity and habitat needs, you can imagine the amount of birds and the amount of bats or other flying dispersers and animals that actually survive on these urban tree presence. So this is to say that dimensions have to be far beyond the green that we are talking about. What are the key elements inside the green presence or green vegetation of the urban trees that makes far more sense than just the presence of trees? This can also be connected to the landscape resilience. We have seen a lot of flash floods emerging in Europe and in Northern Africa and other parts of the world. How much can the urban trees become a strong disaster risk reduction mechanism or a solution? And then also in terms of heritage, look at the heritage. Can we talk about, like from here, be able to write about the heritage of trees like that have stayed in the capital of Athens since before democracy was created? How much can that story become a very beautiful heritage that can inform even the UNESCO decision on the World Heritages? And how much can this also influence decision at UNEA or the UNEP, which is the global environmental, like the recent UNEA UN Environment Assembly that took place in Nairobi, Kenya last week? How much can heritage of these urban trees become also a relevant aspect or relevant issue in determining culture, heritage, science, and indigenous systems? So this was to put a thought across to us that we have to go far beyond the narrative of green in urban centers or the tree presence itself, but the nature of the trees, the type of the trees, and the wellness of the trees, and how these trees go far beyond in determining all these key aspects of our life and our environment, but most importantly, to influence policy dialogue at the highest level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tabi. Very long comment, very rich though. Obviously, urban trees sit at the intersection of climate adaptation, water management, and social equity. And the challenge is, in fact, to have this collective action. This is the reason why through our initiatives, we pull all the different actors together. And absolutely, we do also have interest in the heritage. We have worked in many of those kind of projects, but it's always a matter of time and resources. So sometimes you have to be focusing on specific topics in order to be also having cascading effects on the other ones. Well, I think that time is running quite late. There have been so many exchanges, so we can pass on to the next segment. And with that, I want to thank again the speakers. So Mr. Dalal Kitsast, Mr. Davratali Sharif Soda, Mrs. Sharon Gil, and Mr. Russell Galt. And we pass to the UN Petite Forest Network. We began with planting a tiny forest in San Marino in 2022. We continued in establishing a partnership with the Earthwatch in 2023, and that helped transforming this initiative in a real structured network connecting cities, expert communities around the world. So building on that momentum, we launched the UN Petite Forest in Utrecht at the Future Green Cities in 2024 in September. With a number of partners, including the World Urban Parks, AIPH, and the cities of Utrecht and Liverpool. Since then, the Petite Network has been advancing. We held a virtual gathering in November 2024, bringing together all the members and generating the action plan. And this plan reflects the collective priority of the Petite Forest, which is learning together, sharing knowledge, experiences across cities, building communities and connecting people through from cities to cities partnerships, sharing success stories and highlighting the impact and lessons learned to inspire. We also disseminated last year a survey among the members, and that furthered the strategic focus into specific activities and tracks such as nature-based urban solutions and policy, community, and capacity. Now, looking ahead, the initiative is focused on strengthening the network globally, and we can do it with you, through you, collectively. And with that, I give the floor for her welcoming remarks to our partner, Earthwatch. Amy.
Thank you, Stefania. I'm really pleased to be here today, and Earthwatch is very pleased to be a partner in this network. I think one of the key strengths of the Petite Forest Network is that it's not about a one-size-fits-all for urban forests. It's very much about sharing practices, sharing expertise and knowledge, because every city is very different. We've got very different circumstances, different environments, different communities. However, it's likely that we're all meeting the same type of challenges. So it's about being able to learn from each other. And today we've got two very interesting case studies and organizations who will present some of those lessons for us.
Thank you so much. So talking about peer exchanges, that the previous person from the audience from Bursa was asking us, we are going to be having a peer exchange between Berlin, specifically an association which is called MIA, and Istanbul, both very much committing to into tiny forest. We try to be having a more dynamic kind of exchange. So rather than having the business as usual format, we will have one question for each of the city. They will show one slide that will just answer through which they will answer their question, and then we will go through some questions and exchanges. So I would first invite Istanbul, and thank you, Emi, municipality, Mrs. Ishelay Beste Bayarak. She's an architect, landscape architect in Istanbul municipality, and the question is for you, what was the decisive policy partnership of parcel of land that unlocked your first microforest?
First of all, thank you very much and have a nice day or evening to everyone. As you see, my name is Ishelay Beste Bayrak and I'm a landscape architect and urban conservator in Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, Urban Ecological Design Systems Division. First of all, if you let me introduce our first microforest, Miyawaki Forest in Florya, Istanbul. was implemented in Florya Atatürk Forest in Istanbul. The implementation started in March 2025 to 200 square meter sites. From very beginning, we focused on creating the right ecological conditions rather than simply planting trees in here. The soil was completely rebuilt and was applied organic mulch, and total we used 600 native saplings representing 15 locally adapted species in here. We use a high density planting approach of 3 to 4 saplings per square meter, and maintenance also is carried through a joint model combining the efforts of IMM municipal teams and volunteers, and also regular monitoring is technical oversight are conducted by IMM together with the Tema Foundation in here. When it comes to answering your question directly, I would say the decisive factor was not only a single action, but alignment of the 3 elements. The first, the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality's policy commitment to nature-based solutions created an enabling institutional framework. Second, the availability of a publicly owned municipal land ensured long-term ecological use, protection, and maintenance. This allowed us to treat the microforests not as a temporary pilot, but as a permanent part of the urban green infrastructure. Third of all, a partnership with civil society and ecological experts, particularly the Tema Foundation, which is Turkey's the largest NGO dedicated to fighting erosion and promoting reforestation and environment protection. And academic collaborators also provide technical guidance and credibility and public participation to our mini forest. Together, these elements created a safe space to pilot, learn, and adapt global microforest principles into a locally embedded municipal practice within Istanbul's planning and maintenance system.
Thank you so much, Ishirai. So municipal commitment, publicly owned land, and trusted partnerships. And I would make the same question to Mia, to Mr. Kaspar Möller from Mia Berlin. If you can please come in and answer the same question, and then we can have the exchange.
I'm Kaspar. I'm a project manager and research associate with Mia Forest. We are an NGO based in Berlin. And I was to show a picture, but that's not absolutely necessary. So for our first microforest that was planted as a part of a bachelor thesis, and that was planted before we even founded our organization. So I think the most important thing there was into the enthusiasm and an idealistic drive on our end and from the landowner too. And the picture shown is our most urban tiny forest in the center of Berlin. And that was established by an artist with our help, of course, as a temporary artwork, because he got the permission to set up a temporary artwork by the municipality. So I think that, at least for us and for our work, a passion for ecosystems, for plants and for trees and everything, and a little bit thinking outside the box is fundamental to our work and unlocking trees in cities.
Great. Great, thank you for that. So I remember from the very first discussion we had, there was so much dedication and passion in building this NGO, and then somehow also having, the capacity to be looking beyond the city and see how then it can be expanded. Now we will have an exchange, having 3 questions. The first one is the species choice. Like, how do you pick the species mix? How do you select species? And what other cities can learn about this, about your processing? So if you want to start, Casper, and then Turkey.
Sure thing. So in principle, we are using the Miyawaki method, which uses the potential natural vegetation of the particular site where you want to plant. So local trees and shrub species, like San Marino has planted. But the problem, the problem could be that is the question, how climate resilient are the local species? And Bristol, for example, they mentioned they're planting a Mediterranean species already. So unfortunately, I cannot give you a particular set of species that you can plant, but since heterogeneous ecosystems are always more stable and more resilient than homogeneous systems, I can wholeheartedly recommend to plant a wide mix of species. We usually plant between 15 and 25 tree and shrub species on any given site. And I'm pretty sure that when you plant a system and a forest is a system in a sense, that then it has the ability to adapt to any future problems by itself and not by our hand.
Oh, that's a very good lesson to learn. There is always to learn from us as human beings. Ishlai, same question to you, please.
We also focused, like Mia Forest, to choose species, and also we was guided by the expertise of the Istanbul University Faculty of Forestry, particularly Department of Botany. We focused on locally native broad-leaved species, ensuring a true forest structure with trees, subtrees, and shrubs. I would mention that one key lesson for the other cities is to avoid species that are not vulnerable to pests and diseases, and to plan early for sourcing rare shrubs and understory plants, which are not often readily available in commercial nurseries.
Great. And then so I think it's a great lesson for the cities which are listening. Then the second question would be, which external partners like NGO, Citizens Foundation made it possible? Whom did you work with? Who supported you mostly? Casper, you want to start?
Yeah, of course. There are too many to list. We work with almost everyone because we think that's necessary for a better future. For example, we work with Earthwatch, and they made our citizen science approach possible, and there's a back and forth going on to develop this citizen science approach. So I think that when you aim for not only collaboration but also co-creation, then you can help your work and the trees or nature in cities tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we are trying to be doing as well. Ishlai?
We are not many partners for our first Miyawaki Forest. Two key external partners played a decisive role in here, which is one of them is Tema Foundation. In the beginning, the initial proposal actually came from the NGO, which helped kickstarted the whole process. And also Istanbul University Faculty of Forestry, as I mentioned, they provided the scientific guidance on species selection and forest structure.
Great. So partnership are a key element in consolidating the work. Then the third question would be about communities. How have you been able, or if you have had any challenges into involving communities?
If I may start again, we have a lot of success with the initial planting events, but the ongoing interaction, both the maintenance of the planted sites and possible events held on those sites, has met with mixed results, and it's an ongoing topic for us. This ongoing interaction of the neighborhood.
Okay, Ishlai, about Istanbul.
In Istanbul, we collaborated with Tema volunteers in our Miyawaki forest, but our main challenge was securing the full multi-layer species mix, especially shrubs and understory plants that are commonly produced in nurseries, not from the public participation, but the species are the real challenge for us. We address this challenge through expert guidance, as I mentioned, and coordinating seedling production.
Okay, then if I can invite Amy from Earthwatch in, because Earthwatch Institute, they have great learnings in terms of community involvement. So Amy, do you want to come in and say a few words?
Certainly, yes. I will just share my screen. There we go. Stefania, is the first slide visible?
It is.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, there we go. So at Earthwatch Europe, we work to create a world where we live in balance with nature. And one of our flagship programs is our Nature in Cities program, in which we have now planted over 250 tiny forests using the Miyawaki planting method across the UK. And our tiny forests are all about community. So they are planted, maintained and monitored with the help of local volunteers, businesses and schools, which creates a real sense of ownership and impact. Now, the Nature in Cities program tackles the critical need for more nature in cities by empowering communities to create biodiverse, green habitats in public spaces, benefiting both the urban wildlife and people. Because according to the World Bank, 85% of the UK's population lives in an urban area, but only 1 in 3 people don't have access to green space. So therefore, people are at the heart of our solution. So our approach cultivates those green spaces that are not just ecologically beneficial, but also deeply valued and cared for by the local community, ensuring the long-term success and the impact on health and well-being. And then central to that approach is giving the community a voice through actively listening and involvement at every stage. We've got 3 key pillars in that approach, and that's amplifying the community voice, uniting communities, councils and businesses, and creating the biodiverse green spaces for the whole community. And then when you look at our delivery approach, you can identify 3 key stages, which hopefully can be a source of inspiration. So what we do in every project is we start with a listening phase where we invest in the community voices. So we begin by stakeholder mapping, direct engagement, and understanding those local priorities and aspirations for greening in their neighborhood. And that's a crucial first step that ensures our projects are actually community-led and truly impactful. Then we move on to a creation phase, which is all about co-creating and delivering natural local solutions, where we work with the communities. We move from site assessment and co-design to delivery of the natural solutions. And we host these community creation days that celebrate the achievements and build local ownership. And then the last phase, which is essential in making the project a success, is supporting long-term community stewardship. And as the other organizations have emphasized, this is the most challenging part, because the tiny forest or the Miyawaki forest is there, it's planted, the first enthusiasm has gone, but you want to make that last. So to ensure that lasting impact and deepen the community connection, we provide training and we facilitate opportunities for ongoing care and citizen science monitoring of these green spaces. And that we have seen that empowers long-term stewardship, and it provides valuable data on the success of our initiatives. So to sum it up, the value of a community-based approach goes beyond just the approach of community-led green spaces. It's valuable for long-term community health, and it has a massive impact compared to a top-down method, as the community involvement ensures that spaces better fit residents' needs and it fosters strong ownership and engagement. Thank you very much, Stefania, for this
No,
opportunity.
thank you
to
very
present.
much, Amy. I think that these kind of peer exchanges and interactions are absolutely needed in order to be learning from each other. As we were saying, listening, creating, but then ongoing care. And I think that this ongoing care has to be part of the partnership that we share.
Absolutely.
Thanks for that. And maybe, I mean, we can slowly go to the closing of this very session with two last questions to our speakers from Istanbul and Berlin, from Mia, because I think that those kind of questions might be of a use for the audience. And the first one would be, what do you wish you had known before planting your first microforest? Kasper, you want to start?
Yeah, I don't have a straight answer to that because honestly, we learn something new with every project. So I guess stay flexible and stay adaptive to the site, to your city, to your community.
Every time is a new lesson learned, right?
Sorry.
That's obvious. I mean, that's still to be learning. Shilai?
Sorry, my microphone was off. There are three key lessons I would like to highlight. First, the soil preparation, of course. Without the right soil structure, the forest cannot function properly. Secondly, species planning must start early, especially when dealing with the rare or less commonly produced plants. In Turkey, we suffered a little bit from this. And third, true forest structure matters. A microforest is not just dense planting, it requires vertical layering and ecological relationships, of course.
Great insights. And what should cities consider when designing microforest? And Amy, you can also come in it.
If I may start again, I would like to quote the first law of ecology here is that everything is connected to everything else, and greener Berlin will not happen without considering public and private transport, for example. And I say this because some of our projects have fallen through because there was miscommunication or interpersonal differences between department heads of Parks and Recreation and the building authorities. So things that had nothing to do with us or trees in general, but that always is a factor and that is always worth considering. And secondly, that is on a personal notice that we're talking a lot about planting trees, a million trees here, a million trees there, but it's not only about planting those trees, it's also about letting those trees grow. And there I feel that the long-term perspective sometimes is lacking. And that's what I want to get across.
That's something that we also very much care about, and we even had a specific webinar on this very topic a couple of years back. Ishilai, do you want to also come in with your baby?
Of course. Based on our experience, cities should focus. Sorry, my child came into the room. I'm so sorry.
It's great. I mean, this is life.
Thank you for your answer.
As the Bristol mayor was saying, is trees and children. You know, we are making it happen.
Yes, 1 tree for 1 children. Based on our experience, cities should focus on 5 core elements. As I mentioned, we are very new on this implementation, but in our experience, I can say that first of all, choosing suitable and protected sites. Second, ensuring community involvement, which is very important for implementing, also monitoring, it is very important. Third of all, preparing the soil properly. Fourth, selecting native species, which helps forest structure grows fastly, and planning for long-term sustainability and maintenance, of course.
Yeah, long-term, again, comes up. Amy, do you also want to come in?
Yeah, I think to emphasize how to make that long-term perspective happen, Casper already mentioned it too, but communication from the very start of your project with all of your stakeholders. So clearly mapping who your stakeholders are, who are the communities that you're working with, and having boots on the ground. So actually going out and talking to people so that you can flag any issues that might stand in the way of, you know, a healthy long-term forest very early on. That seems to be the key solution.
Sorry.
Apologies, there's some background noise.
You're muted.
Go ahead, Emi. You can keep on.
That would be the key points.
No, I think that we have had a lot of very interesting inputs and insights from the speakers. That's absolutely what we call peer exchange, and we hope that also the audience has enjoyed. We can take the most out of it, and we hope that we can also, you know, build the Petite Forest is to be creating a replicable model for urban interventions. So I would like to thank with that Kaspar, Ishilai, and Emi for this very interesting discussion, a new format that we try to be testing that I think that gave great results. And before giving the floor to my colleague, I want to draw your attention to a call of action. There is a QR code that we are showing soon that you can just with your machine take from this QR code. You can submit through it. You can submit your city's Petite Forest initiative, and so that you can connect and collaborate with cities across the UNECE region. So this is a call for submission. It's now open. You can click on it. You can reach out to us, and after all, we are part of the same family. So thank you very much. And with that, I pass the floor to my colleague, Sara.
Thank you, Stefania, and thank you to all our speakers and participants also on my behalf for a rich discussion. I think it shows the momentum behind this community. And as we come to the close of the session, I'm pleased to invite Liliana once again to take the floor for her closing remarks and to reflect on what lies ahead.
Thanks much, Sarah. Thanks much also to Stefania and Daniel and everybody who helped organize it, among others, another Sarah who has been helping everyone share slides. Transform your city one tree at a time. And I think coming back to what Kaspar said, it's definitely a living infrastructure. It's an infrastructure that has to adapt also to the infrastructure that is already there. We heard this today quite extensively, whether it's a tree infrastructure that is there or whether it's the built infrastructure, the gray infrastructure, or the blue infrastructure. So it is certainly a nature-based solution when it fits the purpose. We heard that cities are definitely delivering real results. And I'm very happy to welcome 40 new cities in this community that is out there to really have impact. And I'm very proud of the Trees in Cities community that we have been able to build, because cities are delivering real results and adapting creatively to, as we heard today, cold, windier, but also hotter and drier, and in general, more unpredictable conditions. So definitely lesson learned, and welcome to the new cities, to this community where you can learn how to do this. With the petite forests, with the tiny forests, whatever we call them, we heard how these little patches of forest can deliver, can change, can engage with communities. And thanks for the call for submissions, because we love to hear your stories. Let me also address the comment on, but there are so many communities out there. Yes, exactly. They're out there, and it's great that they're out there, and we're very happy that they're out there. We as the UN are there to coordinate. We have the power, as was also said, to link it to the policy level, because that's what we are. We have national members, we have regional members, we work with communities in the entire world through our other regional commissions, our sister and brother organizations. We work with UNEP. So this is the power of the UN, and this is the power of multilateralism and multi-level governance. So thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. We encourage every city present today, every stakeholder present today, every organization present today, every governmental representative present today to stay engaged with us, to engage in our various urban nature initiatives. Tell us your story, tell us your successes, tell us about your non-successes, the lessons learned, the challenges. We love to hear from you. When I asked AI what AI thinks, AI told me the future of the city is a forest. I'm not sure we can go that far, but in any case, huge thank you to all of you. All the very best for the holiday season, all the very best for the coming year, and stay engaged with us. We look forward to working with us. Thank you very much to every participant, and see you all in 2026. Thank you.